Today, I'm going to show you the most cost-effective way to upgrade your braking performance. Let's go. This is a trials bike, so the brakes need to be really, really strong. And the best way to upgrade your brakes is to put bigger rotors on them. Now, you've got to be careful that your frame and forks can stand up to the extra braking power from a bigger rotor, because quite often putting bigger rotors on it will void the warranty. However, if it's a used frame and you're not too bothered about your forks snapping on you, go right ahead and do it. But if you have got a new bike, double check what the maximum rotor size that your forks and the maximum rotor size that your frame can take is before you go putting some huge rotors on them. There's a few things you're going to need to make your rotors bigger. Not only are you going to need the disc rotor, but you're also going to need what's known as an adapter. Now, you're going to have to do a little bit of research yourself to find out which adapter you need, because it all depends on which size rotor you're going to, and what the mounts on your frame are. But I'll leave a link to a good website to figure out which adapter to get in the description down below. So let's start off with the front wheel. Let's take it off. Now we've got the wheel off the bike, you'll notice that there are 6 T25, so Torx bit, small bolts, and you're going to need to undo all of those to get the rotor off. Now I'm going to be lazy and use a drill because I can't be bothered to undo 6 bolts by hand on both wheels. But if you are going to use a drill, be very careful that the T25 bit is correctly in the bolt before you go and undo it, because it's much easier to strip the bolt heads when you're using a drill. And there we go, rotor's off. On the front wheel of my trials bike, I'm going to be swapping from a steel 180mm rotor to a Shimano XT aluminium Spider 203mm rotor. So you'll notice that it says in engraving, rotation. It's really important that you get that right, otherwise the rotor could fail. So we're just going to pop that on there. Grab these. Now, Shimano sends slightly different bolts from normal companies. So they have these little tags. Now these tags are to stop the rotor bolts undoing themselves. So you'll always want to install these the correct way up. And they have a little engraving on these as well that says top, and you always want to put that the right way up. But as you can see, I've got all the little metal safety tags underneath the bolts. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around on a pattern and tighten them. So it's very important, so that you get the disc central, but you don't go around in a circle. So you don't go do this one up, do that one up, and so on. You need to go across it to even out the pressure. So start with this one, then go to that 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 one. Or another pattern that's similar, that means that you're not doing them all up next to each other. I've got my torque wrench with my T25 in it, and I'm going to start here. That's tight. And then there we go. And our rotor is all on. First off, we need to get rid of the old front brake adapter. So we're going to use a 5mm Allen key. We're going to just crack off these 2 nuts, bolts here. And then we're going to undo these 2 ones that are holding the caliper onto the adapter. Just put the caliper out of the way. You're going to want to keep hold of these 2 bolts, so put them in your pocket or something, because you're going to need to use these same 2 bolts to put the caliper back onto the new adapter. It's time to take the adapter off, so we'll just undo these 2. These should also be a 5mm Allen key. You might have a slightly different style of mount on your frame. This is the front brake on my Cannondale Jekyll, and as you can see here, the 2 bolts holding the caliper onto the fork go directly into threads in the fork leg. So if I wanted to upgrade to a bigger rotor on here, I'd have to get a little adapter that goes between the fork legs and the caliper. But as I'm running 180, I can run it straight on the fork leg. But that all depends on the fork you're running and what braking mounts the fork has. So you need to do your research. And as I said earlier, I'll leave a link in the description of a good website to see and figure out which mount you need. So now it's time to put our bigger new adapter on. And if you look here, you'll notice that there's a little triangle with the word up on it. So you're going to want to point that facing up, so facing the handlebars. You're going to want to mount this inside of the fork leg. Just going to thread those through very quickly, just to hold its position. And then we'll do these up. A Shimano rotor, you'll have noticed that you've got a little bit of wire that comes in the bag. And you'll also notice that there's some little holes drilled through the sides of the adapter bolts. So the idea with that is that you thread this through the holes and then wrap it around a couple of times. I don't like using it, I think it looks horrible. So I'm not going to use it, but if you want the extra security and you don't check your bolts very often, I'd probably recommend using it. We're going to attach our caliper to the mount. So you might have to pull your brake hose a little bit because it's going to be moving higher up. So now's the time to get those 2 caliper bolts we put in our pocket earlier out. And we'll just thread those in just a little bit of the way. So you don't want to tighten this all the way down yet because you haven't aligned it with the disc rotor. So we'll just pop it in so that it's sort of in position. So if you're fitting new rotors, it's often worth making sure your pads aren't contaminated, so remove the retaining pin and pop your pads out. If you want to, you can sand them. This often works to remove the top layer of the pad, which might have been contaminated by grease or oil. As you can see, after I sand it, it's really clean and isn't as black as it was before. Here, I'm scorching the pads and trying to get rid of any contaminants like WD-40 or something that might be on the pads. On the right, you can see a pad that was contaminated, and on the left, you can see one I've sanded and burnt. When you're burning it, you've got to be careful not to heat it too hot, or the pad might come away from the backing plate. So now you've made sure that your brake pads aren't going to contaminate the new rotor, and you've got your nice new disc on, it's time to install the new wheel. So you're going to want to be a bit careful here, because you don't want to bend your nice new rotor. And then in my case, I'm going to slide my dropout through. You might have to wiggle it a little bit to get the rotor in, because obviously it's going to be in a new position. And then make sure your wheel's in the correct position. This is quite important because it's very easy to put them off center and dropouts if you haven't got a bolt through axle. So there we go. I'm just going to give that a spin, and as you can hear, that is making a dreadful rubbing noise. So we need to sort that out. Look at the rotor going through the pads from above, and what you're aiming to do is you're aiming to get the rotor so that it goes between the pads with an equal distance on either side. So to do that, you're going to want to adjust the position of the caliper relative to the adapter using the 2 bolts that hold the caliper onto the adapter. Now everything's all set up, let's just double check that everything is nice and tight and the manufacturer's spec. It's fine, that's fine, and we're sorted. We're all good to go. These don't really match the colour of the bike, so I have some fabric 50:1 magic grips here, and we're going to pop those on because they're red, the bike's red, and it's going to look awesome. So let's get those on. So we'll just pop that on. These slide on really nicely. Line it up with the edge, make sure the 50:1 logo is on top, so everyone knows I am running the coolest grips in the world. Do it up, like that. Check that it doesn't twist, it doesn't, awesome. And then we have got some fabric end caps to go in, so these ones go in really nicely, and we'll just push that in like that. And now we're not going to apple core ourselves on the end of the handlebars. So let's get the right hand side done. So these are fabric magic grips, as I said earlier, so it goes to say that they should install like this. Whoa, awesome. Grips are all well and good, but we still need to swap the back rotor out. So again, we're going from a 180 to an XT203. So let's get that done. I showed you how to put the last rotor on, so let's do some Sam Pilgrim inspired magic for this one. Madness. Right, now we just need to change the adapter on the back. Oh, here we go. Both brakes all on. Look how big the rotor is in comparison to the wheel. Huge. Stopping power from these is going to be mad. Now we've got some big boy brakes, let's make sure they work. So let's do some back hops. These are awesome. Both the brakes and the grips feel absolutely fantastic. I'm well stoked I did this upgrade. However, I know I'm going to get some stick in the comments for getting rid of a perfectly good pair of grips. So if anyone wants the ODI Troy Designs grips, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to subscribe, like the video, and if you leave me a reason why you should win the grips in the comment section down below, I'll give you a week, and the person whose comment I like best, I'll send you a message and I'll get the grips sent over to you. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.